Slaves may be prosecuted criminally without their masters being made parties to the trial. These are those what you call trials in absentia type things they've been doing to our people. Except they should be indicted as accomplices, and said slaves shall be tried at first by the judges of ordinary jurisdiction, and if there be any, and on appeal by the superior council, with the same rules, formalities, and proceedings observed for free persons, save the exceptions mentioned hereafter. And keep in mind, this is where our people keep recognizing when they keep on seeing this so-called double standard of law that they keep arguing about. Well, there it is. There it is. It's not an attitude. It's written. You know, and this is back to, you know, like last year and a few years ago, every once in a while we'll do a reminder class or rehash jurisdictions and understanding jurisdictions and the important for our people to understand jurisdictions, what creates them, what their categories are, the challenging of jurisdiction, which would be called quo warrantos or averment of jurisdiction, why they exist. Mandamuses, also being in proper person so that you can even have the capacity to even make an argument. Under the Black Codes, you don't even have the capacity to even make an argument because it's a dead status, which Barack Obama told us, our people, it was. So while people even complain about him, at least he told them that, didn't he? He told people that blacks are dead status. They can't say that he didn't say that because he did.
Someone asked, I can't pronounce the name, appellation, do Moors have a relocation plan?
Why?
It's well, where we got to go.
It's your house. Why? How about do the hybrids have a relocation plan? Do you think they're going to steal the land and steal the people and they're going to retain it? They may think so. I don't think so.
Taj, Hood Comedies. Taj talk about how a passport means, I guess, you're a U.S. citizen. Some more teach that they put the free national name on the passport. But it is all in capital letters. Can you explain that?
Yes. Anything that's created by the corporate state is a corpse, is dead, and is de facto. That's the fact. Now, when are our people going to stop supporting all these institutions that put you on your knees to get your head chopped off? And when are you going to put your energy together to reestablish your own consular venues that are the law communications all over the world? It's not that they ain't in place. Have you been exercising it? Have you been helping those who've been trying to get you to do that, exercise your obligations to your affairs with the rest of the families of nations, which is a consular venue of diversity, of nationality, all over the planet, which is a constitutional and treaty issue, not some U.S. passport, which is an imposition under maritime law, claiming the vessels of the living man and women, of the sentient man and women, to be a ship under maritime law. That's what a passport is for, ships, not for humans. So let's work on working that out, shouldn't we? Shouldn't we be? So when we're talking about rights and lands, then land jurisdiction distinguished from maritime jurisdiction. Isn't a passport a maritime jurisdiction?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, Well, don't we have work to do, you all? And keep in mind, the U.S. is not a country. It's a private corporation constructed specifically for human trafficking. Specifically for human trafficking. Even their courts are what? Traffic courts. Human trafficking.
I told you what they did try to do to me with when they said I was speeding and I went and protested and
convert a right into a maritime trafficking.
They offered me a PBJ, which means a plea before judgment.
Mm-hmm.
So you just pay, mm-hmm. and I refused.
Mm-hmm. And you could beat it all together too. Well, the jurisdiction of the fraud. This is for people, as a matter of fact, Dr. Naila, for all the scholars out there, because you already know that the Curia members will always send trolls out, right? Show in the Constitution for the United States or any treaty where traffic court was established under the jurisdictional powers of and for the United States. Show it. Show it. You can't and you won't, because it doesn't exist. It's a fraud. And everything concerning it is a fraud. But they've gotten away with it because you've accepted their fake jurisdictions and you never challenged it. Anything else, Dr. Naila? We're going to read a few more of these black codes.
Yeah, I think they're wanting to hear the different codes. Because
let's read 36. The slave who was sentenced to suffer death on the denunciation of their master shall, when the master is not an accomplice to the crime, be appraised before his execution by 2 of the principal inhabitants of the locality, who shall be especially appointed by the judge, and the amount of said appraisement shall be paid to the master to raise the sum, and shall be collected by the persons invested with that authority. So you can see when agent representatives of the gangs of New York are sent out on behalf of the corporate state. The corporate state would be politically referred to as the master. So when you see in the Christian Black Codes master, just change it to the corporate state, whether you're dealing with the mayor or the governor, etc., or any agents or agencies sent out to feed upon the people by them. Those would be called contractors. And they're delegated what you would call, or given what you would call, pledged authority to the corporate exercise. This is why for our people who don't really comprehend some of these principles, why when you do any research in Supreme Court cases concerning so-called, and this is a designed statement, so-called police brutality, and you'll see all Supreme Court cases will demonstrate or rule that the obligations of the police is not to the people, but to the corporation. That's a fact. Just a reminder so you comprehend what's going on out in these streets on your land with these demons who you've been thinking was your government, who are not your government, never were. Article 37, we forbid all the officers of the Superior Council and all our other officers of the justice in the colony to take any fees, or receive any perquisites in criminal suits against slaves under the penalty, and in so doing of being dealt with as guilty of extortion. Article 38. We also forbid all our subjects in this colony, whatever their condition or rank may be, to apply on their own private authority the rack of their slaves under the pretense whatever, under any pretense whatever, and to mutilate said slaves in any one of their limbs or in any part of their bodies, under the penalty of confiscation of said slave, a master so offending shall be liable to a criminal prosecution. We only permit masters, when they shall think that the case requires it, to put their slaves in irons and to have them whipped and rode or roped. Now, with Article 38, now you understand where people be sitting around talking about, they're packing 80% of the people in prisons are blacks and Puerto Ricans and everything, and this is racist and stuff. No, it's the Christian black codes. And those are tags put on Moors under subjects. They are not pedigree identities. Blacks and Puerto Ricans or Latinos are not pedigree identities or historical pedigrees of peoples. They are tags put upon defeated Moors by the hybrid Europeans, regulated by members of the Circle Church and Chancery, with all jurisdictional powers run from Fleet Street, England, delivered to Washington, D.C., then distributed to the different municipalities and the corporate states or states of jurisdictions, distinguished from state republic jurisdictions, which were overthrown. Thank you very much. They're all run by the Christian black codes. That's where you get those abuses from. Article 43. Husbands and wives shall not be seized and sold separately when belonging to the same master, and their children whom under 14 years of age shall not be separated from their parents, and such seizures and sales shall be null and void. The present article shall apply to voluntary sales, and in such cases, sales should take place in violation of the law. The seller shall be deprived of the slave. He was illegally retained, and said slave shall be adjudged to the purchase without any additional. Article 44, slaves 14 years old and from this age up to 60 who are settled on lands and plantations and are at present working on them shall not be liable to seizure for debt, except for what may be due out of the purchase money agreed to be paid for them, unless said grounds or plantations shall be distressed and seized, and judicial sale of a real estate without including the slave of the aforesaid age who are part of said estate shall be deemed null and void.
So, that sounds like what came to mind when you're reading that, when we're talking about the issue now about the border and unaccompanied minors.
Yes. All of that operation is still the black codes. And people keep looking at, well, where's due process? They're not constitutional operators. They're organized criminals. They're not your government. They're Roman curate members. That's a fact. Our people, it's hard for our people to accept that among the hybrids operating in North America, that these people are Roman curia members and that they're carrying out the rules of Rome. They're not carrying out justice. They don't love Jesus. They just use him as a front. They don't love Muhammad and they don't love the Prophet. They don't love Allah. They're using them as a front. They use them as a front to get the people's trust. Then you start dealing with them and they screw you every time. And you ain't caught on yet. It's not racism. It's the Christian black codes.
For Dr. G, you took the plea. No, I did not take the plea, Sade. I was a city official and they just dismissed it. I didn't plea anything. with that ticket, Grand Sheik.
Mm.
Someone said I took the plea. I didn't take the plea.
I didn't take the plea.
I didn't take the plea. I
and
said
even then, it's interesting because
when I showed up, I sat there for 15 minutes. After they released me on my OR,
mm-hmm.
I came back for court, and I sat there for 15 minutes. They said dismissed. It was dismissed. Mm-hmm. I never even went in the courtroom, mm-hmm. so-called courtroom. I sat out there, but I was a city official.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I didn't plead.
Yeah, of course you're not, because that admits the jurisdiction. Keep that in mind.
Right.
They had no jurisdiction in the first place.
Yeah.
Article 50. Masters, when 25 years old, shall have the power to manumit their slaves. And I suggested you all who are listening, look up the word manumit. So when you have these so-called black scholars talking about freed slaves and manumitters, and we was manumitted in 1865 and Juneteenth and all this stuff, that's BS. You've been played and you're being played. Manumission does not mean liberation. You better believe that. Like for real, for real, for real. Masters, when 25 years old, shall have the power to manumit their slaves either by testamentary dispositions or by acts inter vivos. And write that down, inter vivos. That's INTERVIVACE. Pay attention to all of these law terms because they have much to do with the social engineering that's been going on relative to our people. Say it again.
How do you spell it again?
Inter vivos. Yeah. INTER, one word, vivos. VIVACE. And the other word, manumit. 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 None of these words mean what our people have been thinking they mean. So our people think they've been liberated in slavery and 1865. And we was able to get our own peanut butter sandwiches at cents. You stop lying to yourself. BS. All this stuff was institutionalized.
Inter vivos.
Inter vivos.
INTERVIVOS.
Right here is what we're talking about at the time that this was written. This is in 1700s.
Okay.
The structure of the spelling may change, but this is the spelling.
Giving between living people.
1700s, this is the spelling.
A legal term referring to a transfer or gift made during one's lifetime.
Yes. So transfer of responsibility, jurisdiction, gift, people, trade. Gotta put it in perspective. Anyway. Pardon me. Yeah, so, and thereas slaves with a view to acquire the necessary means to purchase their freedom may be tempted to commit theft or deeds of plunder, no matter to set free the slaves without the obtaining from the superior council a decree of permission to that effect, which permission shall be granted without cost when the motive for the setting free of said slaves, as specified in the petition of the master, shall appear legitimate to the tribunal. And all future acts for the emancipation of the slaves freed shall not be entitled to their freedom. They shall be taken away by their former masters and confiscated for the benefit of the India Company. So the India Company and the Virginia Company is really what our people have been falsely calling the United States.
And when we were listening to Mel K talking about the Pesos family and all that they own, which is now appears to be multiple corporations, but it's really owned by this one trust with the 12 or 13.
Now, and then you're talking about
bloodline families.
Now, keep in mind when you're looking at that, you're looking at the hybrid Europeans that took over Iberia.
Iberia.
Iberia is now known as Europe.
Okay.
So now you're talking about Germany, France, etc. And this is, again, why when they're teaching history, they will teach Europe as only the hybrids. They won't teach Europe as the Picts, the Maures, and the Dubs, which are the true Europeans, which are Africans. That's why they won't say Iberia.
It's funny when you see a lot of so-called Africans in Europe, they act as if they came there instead of the.
It's the disassociation practices that you talked about.
Mm-hmm.
But again, just like we said before, just like when we were talking, I think the last time we showed some of the coats of arms of Europe with Joel A. Rogers, one of the world's most awarded scholars.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see any pale faces?
No.
Not a one. See, so people keep forgetting in the early 1800s is this is when we lost Europe or Iberia. The same way, like when you see a lot of people talking jurisdictions or like they're talking about the economic trade competition between Russia, the United States, and China now, as an example, in Brazil, or what they call the BRICS nations, competing with the U.S. They keep looking at it from the perspective that they're competing with a country.
Mm.
They're not looking at that they're competing with a corporate entity, operators of Rome, who have been going to and fro the earth, devouring nations, and then pretending to be a nation themselves. So you got to look at that paradox that creates a lot of convoluted thought, doesn't it? But not knowing that is dangerous to people when they come to jurisdiction. This is why people, and again, a lot of questions that will come to pass, or come about to even some of these conversations is if people don't get over that mountain of miscomprehension of understanding that the United States is not a country, never was a country. If they don't wrap their heads around that, they still don't get it. If they don't wrap their heads around that, when the hybrid Europeans keep saying America as if it's a country, that they're being robbed as soon as they make those kind of statements. It's a total misrepresentation. And so a lot of the information is to get us clear. In other words, if you can't comprehend what's broken, you can't fix it. You'll never fix it. This is another reason why projection is practiced by them, by projecting deeds that they do to others on others to distract you from them, and also to claim names and that are not their own, and then put names on the things that are not their own in order to claim things that are not their own and to distort history. So when you hear hybrid Europeans talking about America as a country, you already know that that person is trying to steal the birthright and the estate, or trying to maintain status quo, even if they're making statements that appear to sound restorative of the republic order, if you get the whole point. When you see them talking about America as a country, fraud. If you see them keep continuing calling the United States as if it's a country, fraud. Because what they're really they're just trying to avoid, which you can comprehend politically, of them admitting that North America, Central America, South America is Morocco. That's the country. Morocco is the land. That's the country. Now, the political jurisdiction of trade that took over after breach of treaty is the U.S. corporation, India company, and the Virginia company, pretending to be the country and styled as the United States on corporate papers that's available to anybody that does research. So all they needed was a few generations under the Board of Education to convince these people that the U.S. was a country. And that's the paradigm that we're dealing with today. So when people are trying to fix things, they keep on speaking of the corporation of conquest as the country. At that point in the linguistic structure, they're giving up their birthright. You see, so we have to fix that, don't we?
Yes.
This is why we have to redundantly, and to the point of being boring, redundantly remind people With the change of knowledge comes a change of your language. And this is, again, when people who claim to be scholars keep calling the U.S. the country, you already know they're either compromised agents and indeed not the scholars that they claim. You want to read some more of these black codes?
Yes.
So I'm going to read 53 and 54. We commend all manumitted slaves to show the profoundest respect to their former masters. This is all that honor that you saw our people doing to the corporate state and keep trying to be civil rights citizens and all this kind of stuff. 14th Amendment, this is where that's where that mentality comes from. To their widows and their children, and any injury or insult offered by said manumitted slaves to their former masters, their widows or children, shall be punished with more severity than if it had been offered to any other person. Now you see that their variable attitude that our people be calling prejudice, double standard. It's not a double standard. The standard between the corporate state or master and the citizens or the slave. So when you're looking at U.S. citizen, you're looking at slave. And we ain't U.S. citizens. We're nationals of the land. Just keep that in mind. And they shall be punished with more severity than if it had been offered to any other person. We, however, declared them exempt from the discharge of any duties or services, and from payment of all taxes or fees or anything else in relationship to their person, or to their personal or real estate, either during the life or after the death of said slave. Article 54, we grant manumitted slaves the same rights, privileges, and immunities which are enjoyed by free-born persons. It is our pleasure that their merit in having acquired their freedom shall produce in their favor, not only with regards to their persons, but also to their property, the same effects which our other subjects derive from the happy circumstance of their having been born free. In the name of the King, Fazende Bruxelles, Paris, Bienville de la Grâce, March 1724. There you go. So when you study the Christian Black Codes and you study the details, and keep in mind, you just change the word master to municipality, county, state. And you change the slave into citizen, U.S. citizen, 14th Amendment person, Negroes and blacks, etc. And then you claim the masters who have manumitted their estates to the corporate states under manumission, or transferred their ownership of slaves to the Congress. We refer to them as ghouls or dragons of the Ku Klux Klan, also known as, quote unquote, white people. There you go. It's not hidden and is known by all scholars. However, truth is not popular because it kind of busts people's bubble. You know, people have their imaginary, oh, I'm a U.S. citizen with a U.S. sandwich passport and stuff. That's your opinion. That's not the reality. So we need to fix that, don't we?
Yes, we do.
And can it be fixed by a being who doesn't know that slavery, as they know it connotatively, was institutionalized? It was not eliminated. And that there are more slaves that are functioning at Midgard than ever in human history, that more people are enslaved today than there ever were in human history, and that all your permits and licenses, etc., are issues of bodily instruments from the church and the chancery members in service to the popes of Rome, and are actually tithing fees that convert people's rights and liberties into crimes, which is why they traffic people on the street and they stop people and take their vessels. People need to know what's really going on.
Okay, here's Angel says, salute with all due respect. Is not the Grand Sheik being subjected to the same statutes and codes as the whole of U.S. Aborigines by the foreign de facto corporate body politic?
Absolutely. And I've been fighting for 40 years. Some wins, some losses, but I ain't a punk and I ain't giving up.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for that. Let me see. We go to the section. Someone says to read White's concise trustee handbook and learn how to live under your own written law of trust. Actually, that's on the flash drive. Yeah, we got it on the drive now. Actually, let me see. Yakub Bey says, how can we establish a militia in every territory to start? Where did it go? I think he said to enforce. Kind of slipped away that quick.
I can't hear you.
I'm trying to find where he went. Let me see. Oh, how can we establish a militia in every territory to start, I guess, to enforce the treaty and consular jurisdiction?
The interesting thing